Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your hosts,
John
and CC, and we are here to talk to you about all the shows we watched in
ザ・ワールド時は止まった
その地の記憶
Alright, before we were so rudely interrupted by Dio there,
Yeah, what was that all about?
Yeah, who knows?
He's such a jerk.
Yeah, what a douche. But a memorable douche, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, as I guess our intro gave it away, that was the point of it actually. So we're gonna talk all about them JoJos this episode, like
Yeah.
all of them TV JoJos. Yeah, basically all 2 seasons. Well, kind of.
3 series,
Effectively.
effectively.
Kind of 3 series, 4 seasons, 3. Yeah, it's a bit mixed up, but again, we'll get to that. Of the famous show JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and very popular too. At least now. I don't know how it was before the TV series, at least over here, but yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure, it was vastly more popular in Japan, but I'm sure it had like a smaller, like, I don't want to say cult following, but
It fits, I think.
maybe. I just like to avoid using the word cult just because it has a negative connotation.
Probably, yeah.
But I mean, this new series has definitely helped bring it back into relevancy, considering the original manga started back in the 80s.
Oh yeah, big time. And with good reason. Its execution is so good that, it's very well. But we'll also get to that. I'm always postponing it until later. But anyway, before I do more of that, let's just, I guess, get into it. Basic outline, maybe, of what JoJo's Bizarre Adventure actually is at this point. So, the story is about this family, the Joestar family. And what the series is kind of an anthology series, but not really. First of all, there are several parts to the whole JoJo Odyssey, so to speak. And each part, there are 8 now. The 8th is still currently in publication in manga form, and each part deals with a new protagonist. Sometimes it's the son of a previous protagonist, or a grandson, or a relative in another form. And later it gets into alternate universe stuff, and we haven't reached that point yet, so we can
not in the anime anyway.
Yeah, so we can speak of that when we get there. But yeah, it starts out with the young heir to the Joestar family, Jonathan Joestar, who grows up in the 1880s in Great Britain, and his father gets into an accident with a carriage, and where his mother dies, I think. Does she die in there? Yeah, right. Yes, right. And a guy named Dario Brando witnesses the accident and sneaks up to the broken carriage, and I think he tries to steal from Jonathan's father or something, or
Yeah, he's very much a looter.
yeah, exactly. But Jonathan's father mistakenly thinks that he's trying to rescue him or save his life, and thus is eternally grateful because he's kind of an idiot, and basically welcomes Dario Brando and his son Dio to the Joestar family, and makes them a part of their family, and it's like, hey, if you need anything, my home is your home. And Dario takes that to heart and basically sends Dio to the Joestar family because he wants him to grow up there. And yeah, Dio later on has his own agenda and basically wants to take over the family or get all the rich and fame and get rid of Jonathan. And yeah, that's the basic outline. Shit gets a bit crazier when an old ritual stone mask is introduced into the story. I think that was created, or at this point, that's how it's explained by the by the ancient Mayan civilization or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically, what we learn pretty soon is that whoever puts on the mask gets turned into a vampire. And yeah, can, command the undead and everything. And pretty early on in the story, Dio does exactly that. Oh, by the way, spoilers for Phantom Blood, guys. If we want to talk about the later arcs, we have to at least spoiler what is going on in Phantom Blood, because the third part, Stardust Crusaders, heavily, depends on the story, or relates to the story of Phantom Blood, the first part.
Well,
So,
Phantom Blood is just such a huge setup for everything else that happens
exactly.
following it.
So if you want to go like in completely blind, don't listen to this. But we'll try to avoid spoilers for Battle Tendency, which is part 2, and Stardust Crusaders, which is part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But we have to spoil Phantom Blood, or we won't get anywhere here. So yeah. So anyway, Dio puts on the stone mask and becomes a vampire and kills a lot of people. Does he kill Jonathan's father?
Yeah, I believe he does. He kills George in the coldest of blood.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, he becomes he was a super douchebag before that, but he becomes even more of a douchebag.
Well, yeah, he's trying to kill George up into that point, and then he's like, "Oh, I have vampire powers now."
Yeah. And yeah, same with Jonathan. And yeah, Jonathan's mission from that point on obviously becomes to kill Dio and avenge his father and everything. And he gets help from a weird Italian martial artist whose name is Count Zeppeli, I believe.
And
Yeah.
Antonio Zeppeli.
Yeah, Antonio Zeppeli. And also he befriends former street thug called Robert E.O. Speedwagon. Fantastic name, by the way.
Or excuse me, William Antonio Zeppeli. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes. And yeah, basically those 3 characters and some apprentices of Zeppeli to set out to defeat Dio and his army of darkness. So yeah, that's basically the story of Phantom Blood. It's this pretty straightforward, old school shonen story, and that's probably also why Phantom Blood is maybe the least interesting part of the JoJo storyline so far.
Yeah, but like I said before, it sets up the rest and it gets to the other stuff faster because Phantom Blood, as far as I can tell, is like one of the shorter story arcs.
Oh yeah, definitely. The first season of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure condenses like part 1 and part 2 into one season, and I think Phantom Blood has 8 to 10 episode, and Battle Tendency, the next one, has 16 or 14. It's a bit Phantom Blood is definitely the shortest story. You can get to it very quickly. So
Yeah.
So if you're like, well, this is pretty standard fare. This is not that interesting, and then don't worry, you'll get through it pretty fast, and the good parts come after that. So yeah.
That's not to say Phantom Blood isn't good.
No, it's great. Actually, I love it quite a lot. It's just of all the JoJo stuff that has aired on TV up to now, it's the weakest. Just to be honest.
By comparison.
Yeah, definitely. It's still better than a lot of other shonen stuff, though. After that, Phantom Blood, we switch the story over to Jonathan's grandson, Joseph, and the story is set in New York in 1938, and he has to deal with a whole bunch of new villains and new comrades in arms and everything. Like, there's a whole new set of characters introduced. In Battle Tendency, we deal with a whole new set of villains called the Pillar Man, who are, well, also connected to the Stone Mask in a way. And, well, Joseph is basically roped into fighting them. With that, the first season of the TV show ends, and then we get into the second season, which is, at the same time, the third part of the manga storyline. And it's called Stardust Crusaders, which is probably the most famous JoJo thing out there.
It's definitely the most well-known.
Yeah, because there was already an old OVA in the 90s, I think.
I believe it was like 2000, 2001.
I think there were two parts. I think there was one in the 90s, and then later in 2000 and 2001 we got a sequel that for some reason told the first part of that story.
Yeah, they cut around it really weird in like this
Yeah, they started with the
reverse order.
yeah, they started in the 90s with the ending, and then in the 2000s they, were like, "Oh, you wanted to the beginning of that here." Here it is.
Okay, yeah, you're right. The first part was 93, 94, and the second part was 2000 to 2002.
Yeah. So,
And by second part, I mean first part. Bleh.
yeah. It is a bit confusing, but actually the 2000 OVA is not as strong, but I can still recommend the old 90s OVA because in terms of an animation budget and quality, it's superior to the TV show. That isn't saying that the TV show has bad animation quality, far from it, at least for Stardust Crusaders. But, 90s high quality OVA, you can't probably get any better than that in terms of animation. So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, in terms of quality, it's great, but it also deviates from the original like work a bit, and there's some odd changes.
Oh yeah, it's really condensed. Like, I mean, the temple stuff is in there, like the most interesting things, but yeah, it takes its liberties just for terms of time compression. There's a lot of villains missing and everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I mean also parts of the end of the story are changed.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, right. Or at least left more ambiguous for some reason. Oh, also there was, which was my first encounter with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. There was a fighting game by Capcom for the Sega Dreamcast. That was the first time I ever experienced JoJo, something related to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure ever, and it was a pretty entertaining fighting game.
I never played it on Dreamcast, but I played it like several years after on an emulator with a ROM of the arcade version. And since I wasn't really familiar with it, I couldn't really wrap my head around what was going on. I was like, what the hell is this game? And then they released an HD version on PlayStation Network and Xbox Live, but it got delisted and I missed the boat on buying it because I feel like if I bought and played it now, I'd at least have a slightly better appreciation for it. And I'm really kicking myself that I didn't buy it because now you can't anymore. Oops.
Yep. Well, maybe it will come back again. Is it on Steam or something?
I don't think it is.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, yeah, but Stardust Crusaders is like I said, the most well-known version of JoJo out there, at least for now. We'll see how the coming seasons fare, if there are any more than the fourth one that's gonna be airing soon. And the story in there continues with Joseph's grandson, Jotaro Kujo, who's living in Japan, and basically Dio is coming back, which is kind of which is a big spoiler for Phantom Blood, because at the end of that you kind of assumed that he was dead for the sole reason that his head got fucking chopped off his neck.
Yeah.
But vampires are, as we've established in our previous episode for Seraph of the End, vampires are a pesky bunch.
They're very hardy.
Yeah. So you can't get rid of Dio that easily. So, yeah, he's coming back, and through some weird means, he basically poisons, in a way, it's more complicated than that, but he poisons Jotaro's mother, so Joseph's daughter, and Jotaro and a few friends from school, and well, one friend from school, one they will later meet, and a friend of Joseph's basically go and try to stop Dio again. They go on a big world tour. Like, the setting is much bigger this time around than in Phantom Blood and Battle Tendency. Like, they basically travel to a lot of different countries, and the end goal being Egypt, because that's supposedly where Dio resides somewhere, and they have to find him and battle a lot of foes on the way. And that sounds pretty generic and standard, but just in terms of execution and everything, it's anything but. More on that later as well. So, some basic things about the show too. The manga was created, drawn, written, everything by Hirohiko Araki. And the anime produced and animated by David Production. I wasn't impressed with the animation quality in the beginning. Phantom Blood is really rough, in my opinion, but it gets progressively better. And Stardust Crusaders has some standout episodes, like the finale, the battle against the puppet guy pretty early on. Yeah, there's some really good looking fights in this episode. And it's not always about the animation, and JoJo is kind of like I don't know, one of the shows that drives that argument home, because that show is all about the style. The manga has this really unique style with where the characters always pose in a very distinct way and wear these like really elaborate clothes, and you've got some really weird color coding in there. The old OVA toned that down quite a lot. There was not a lot of this outlandish stuff. The old OVA was really basic and dark shonen stuff.
Yeah, I feel like the OVA, like as far as it being colorful goes, it was a lot more washed out than
Oh yeah, definitely. It was definitely more on the realistic in quotes
yeah.
scale. And the new TV show isn't at all. It goes all the way. It's like, okay, this is what the manga looks like. It looks fucking crazy. Let's try to get this adapted somehow. And they do that by, basically having two color palettes for this show. You have like the standard color palette that is pretty normal, but still really colorful. And then for dramatic moments, everything, sometimes the color palette shifts and you get like this negative effect where characters have like complementary color, where like complementary colors to their usual outfits or are displayed in that way for just that scene. And it's really striking. If that happens. So accompanied by the music that and sound effects that also makes for great effect. And one of the most other striking things is the anime includes the katakana from the manga for sound effects.
Yeah, like the onomatopoeia that you would see on the manga panels.
Yeah. So if there's like a menacing aura or something, you got like this Japanese character for go 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 or something like that. And it was like, and which is supposed like this ominous feeling, and that just pops up on the screen in big.
I love that. It's so good.
It's fantastic in big purple letters, and yeah, and that's seen through all out of the series for different occasions and different reasons, and it's great. It's a really unique, interesting visual choice that just works in this series because this series is so over the top, doesn't take itself seriously at all. Well, it's very serious in terms of the stories sometimes, but not in its visual representation. The outlandish character designs, super bulky, muscular guys who sometimes pose in really effeminate clothes and effeminate poses for some reason. Concord their bodies.
The poses are something else because they'll just be like, obviously you can't see me, but they'll just be like, oh, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, they turn backwards so you can see their chest and their ass at the same time, and it's really weird, but it's also fantastic. Just this show is visually striking. If you like watch the first few episodes of Phantom Blood and are like, man, the animation is really not that good, trust me, it gets better. First of all, animation wise, and just the general presentation and artwork that in that show is fantastic. Just something you don't see every day in anime and manga. So it works really well. David Production, I didn't expect him to deliver that well on the whole adaptation aspect. Getting basically the manga pages in the anime in motion. And yeah, it's fantastic. I love the visual style of that show so much. I think it's fantastic. And they're doing something different again for Diamond is Unbreakable now. That is like, again, different color scheme. It looks very pastel-y, watercolored, and quite interesting. I'm looking forward to the visual effects in that show too. So another interesting thing in the show is how the characters like battle each other. Of course, the vampires, the bad guys, at least in the first arc, get vampire powers, and then later weird Maya powers or something. And Anyway, and something entirely new in Star Wars Crusaders. So the first part, what Jonathan and his crew are using to battle Dio, is this martial arts called Ripple or Harmon, which is basically using the energy of the sun through, breath control and everything to empower the body with ripples of solar energy. So strengthening their own body. They can also infuse this energy into inanimate objects and make them stronger and more deadly and everything. So basically can use everyday objects to make them into a weapon. I think some characters like strengthen their hair, and Joseph in Battle Tendency uses yo-yos. JoJo's using yo-yos, and infuses them with Harmon or Ripple and makes them stronger. So yeah, that's basically how they fight the foes in the first two arcs, and then Stardust Crusaders introduces a whole new aspect to, well, basically to the lore and the universe by by introducing stands. And stands are basically the spiritual, the physical manifestation of the spiritual power of a character. If a character, if a person is strong enough, he can manifest a spiritual power in a stand that looks like, I don't know, whatever, weird bulky guy, alien, or a fucking bird that spits, that can control fire. There are basically no real rules to this shit. Like, a stand can be anything. It can, but basically it's a character, a spiritual character that just jumps out of and manifests out of the body of the person controlling it, and has superpowers.
I think it's worth noting that not all the way through, but many of the stands that are encountered at first, all have to deal with the different arcana.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's Star Platinum, Magician's Red, Silver Chariot, stuff like that.
Yeah, the first stands in the JoJo universe are named after like you said, the major arcana of the Tarot, and then later in the second part, in the second arc of the of Stardust Crusaders, they are based on the ancient Egyptian deities.
Yeah,
like Horus and Basset and everything.
It should be also noted that unless you are able to manipulate the power of the stand, that you cannot see them. Like they are just not there. So if you see Jotaro doing all sorts of crazy shit, but you don't have the ability to manipulate stand power, it's like, what the hell's going on? I don't see anything.
You see just things exploding all around you. What is going on?
Pretty much.
Yeah. And well, later on, stands are commonly named after musical artists and bands and albums and songs, and which is also a big thing about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Araki is a huge fan of Western music.
Oh yeah. Music references are everywhere in this show.
I mean, it starts from the beginning with Dio, after Ronnie James Dio.
Mm-hmm. And pretty more of that. You have characters named after bands, musical albums, songs. You have, for example, AC/DC. You have, like we already mentioned, Dire and Straits. Susie Q, the love interest for Joseph, and a lot of that stuff.
Zeppeli after Led Zeppelin, REO, Speedwagon.
If you like that stuff as much as Araki and grew up in that time, this is a treat for you. And in more than one way. The ending songs for each season of JoJo's feature famous pop songs from like the corresponding time period of or matching the show's theme. For example, the ending to the first arc of Stardust Crusaders was "Walking Like an Egyptian."
That was great.
Yeah, it was great. A fantastic choice, and fits the show perfectly. Also, it was a great animation wise. So yeah, stuff like that, and that also that led to a bit of complication when it came to basically localizing the show. Translating and everything, because Japan, at least in that time, maybe doesn't give a shit about copyright in that regard. But you cannot, without permission, just use the characters, just like artist's name for each of your characters.
Yeah.
At least not in America.
Yeah, certain names had to be changed for the localization. Like I remember Polnareff had to just be changed to Eiffel
Yeah.
because apparently Michael Polnareff was not very kosher with the fact that his name was being used there. What else was there? There was
Vanilla Ice became just iced.
yeah, and right, Jay Giles was changed to Centerfold, I believe.
Yeah. And
Which thematically makes sense because Centerfold was a song by the Jay Giles band.
yeah, they still try to, go somewhere that makes sense for most of those adaptations or changes. And yeah, but that was a thing that happened. Like if you wonder why if you watch like the show and with the Japanese audio, I think for most of the part you only can watch it with the Japanese audio. I don't know how far the dub has progressed at this point. I think there is one, but I don't know of how much.
Yeah, I think it might just be the first series for now.
Yeah.
Oh no, they were starting to dub Stardust Crusaders, so there's some of that.
Okay, but yeah, if you're watching the Japanese stuff and you're wondering, hey, why are they calling them something else than is in the subtitles, or yeah, then that's the reason. But yeah, aside from that, if you like your musical references, you you will enjoy the show just for that. Not
It's
only for that, but you can. So we gotta, of course, ask the most important question first, John,
Mm,
and that is,
mm,
who is your favorite JoJo?
Joseph. Done.
Without a doubt, right? I mean, come on. And of course, we only can talk about the first three because, well, I for myself, I haven't seen anything past Stardust Crusaders. That's why I'm looking forward to the, adaptation of the coming parts, and I hope we will get all of them. But for now, we have three JoJos, and of all of those, Joseph is the best. John, tell me why he is the best, or tell our listeners.
Because, well, you start off seeing him in battle tendency as just this very standoffish, like, hey, I'm gonna kick your ass sort of guy. But there's moments where you can see he just can't quite hold it together, and he just kind of somehow manages in the end. But through being just this bumbling doofus,
Oh yeah,
he,
he's the total goof.
you just love him. And then in Stardust Crusaders, he's just this
He's old man
older.
goof.
He's an older guy, but he still has that charm and that silliness, and he's just great. And both of his voice actors, Tomokazu Sugita when he's young and Unsho Ishizuka when he's older, they just both nail it. They're both great.
Ishizuku and his reactions to stuff that happens in Stardust Crusaders is stuff of legend. His, oh my god! Of course, Joseph is a British guy, so he would respond to, surprising
But
things in English
well,
or.
Joseph is like British American as
Yeah.
opposed to just British.
All right, so he should, he should be talking English, but of course, it gets turned into English, and this is the best thing about his reactions to certain things.
He's like, "Oh my god!" or "Son of the bitch!" and it's like, whoa.
But with such passion, he doesn't half-ass it, not at all. He goes all the way, and it's everyone in the show goes all the way. That's just a general theme. Like no one is half-assing it in this show. Everyone is. If you expect 100% of the show, you will get 250 probably. It's just the show goes over the top constantly. It's crazy. And yeah, he's a really nice counterpoint to Jonathan, who's like this real straightforward, normal, shown protagonist in the first part in Phantom Blood, and then after you get that then, and you get to Battle Tendency, and you're like, oh, okay, he seems to be kind of the same guy, maybe a bit snarkier, and but still an honorable knightish type, and he just. When the first villain attacks him, it's like, well, I don't give a shit, and pulls out a fucking Tommy gun and
Yes.
fires it into an empty restaurant with the guy in it. And it's like, okay, this is where we're going. All right, I'm all in. Yeah. So Joseph is fantastic, and like we said, he only gets better in Stardust Crusaders. So a really enjoyable character, and a fantastic protagonist and side character. So yeah, I don't know if we'll see him again in later arcs. I hope so, but I'm not sure.
I mean, I didn't read too far ahead, but I think he does have some role in Diamond. So
Yeah, he would be still alive for that, I guess. So yeah, looking forward to seeing more of him if it ever comes to that. And of course, let's not forget about Jotaro. He is cool, but he's not quite the boorish, straightforward knight-ish protagonist like Jonathan is. He's more of like a ruffian, a delinquent in high school wearing the appropriate uniform too. He always, or that's what it seems to be. He's always like kind of grumpy and wants to be mostly left to his own, and seems to be an asshole to his mother and to his grandpa. But he has a good heart, and
yeah,
that
his intentions are in the right place. But he's just like, I don't give a shit about any of you.
he's. But yeah, that's why he's like he maybe falls a bit more flat than Joseph. Joseph is just such a sympathetic, goofy jerk that he steals the show from Jotaro. Also, although Jotaro like kicks more ass than Joseph, I guess he's just the strong guy. And yeah,
I also want to mention that I love Dio because Takehito Koyasu he's so good.
Oh,
He's amazing.
I want to get to that right after we got our favorite JoJo out of the way. What's your favorite villain?
All right. Well, yes, there we go.
Dio, right? But Dio is like is the obvious choice. Dio has even before the show aired and everything, he was already a meme with his thing where he throws, I don't know, what was it, cement mixer or something on on Jotaro in the old OVA and makes this weird sounds.
I
And
think it was an oil tanker in the OVA.
oh, I'll take it, right. Yeah, and his stand and how he uses it and all of that was already well known to hardcore anime nerds, so to speak. And yeah, he and the performance of his voice characters in the new TV series are fantastic, like all the way entertaining. Again, giving 250%, and just so much fun to listen to. He's such a ludicrous, balls to the wall, insane, super evil villain, like menacing and crazy and
Like
conniving and
implausibly evil.
yeah, he's like, well, if you combine Hitler with the craziest fucking person on the planet, and I don't know, some weird fashion mogul. I don't.
Oh, that's not wrong.
Yeah, it's fucking. He is a crazy person, and it's just every time he's on screen, it's a blast. So
man.
entertaining.
But I guess this isn't too far off the point, but you said Hitler, and that made me think of Stroheim.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's another. He's another cool character. He's not per se a villain. He starts out as a villain, and
He ends up being the chillest Nazi ever.
the chillest Nazi ever, which is kind of okay.
It sounds bad on paper,
Yeah,
but then you see him and it's like, dude, this guy's awesome. Because he's like, man, fuck you, Joseph. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, we gotta do something about this. Yeah.
if Battle Tendency or JoJo's in general took itself seriously, that would maybe be a bad thing, making a Nazi such a badass. But since it isn't, it's just a cool ride. It's just the most chill Nazi cyborg ever, and yeah.
And just every time, Germany science is the best in the world.
Yeah, his fucking lines are also outrageous. It's crazy.
Hell, in I played the Japanese demo of Eyes of Heaven a long while back, and one of his attacks is just him just taunting you, and it takes like maybe 10 seconds for the whole thing to go off. But if you let it go off, then he just hits you like a truck. It's the equivalent of Mika's V skill in Street Fighter V, where if you let the whole thing go off, you can't win.
Mm.
Oh
Yeah.
man, it's so nuts.
So Yeah, but aside from that and Dio, we have so many memorable characters and villains in this show. Well, in
Even
this
the
in this whole
Pillar Men.
yeah, even the Pillarman. Yeah, Dio. Then Pillarman cars, ACDC. They're very memorable. Um, and then of course in Stardust Crusader, basically that's. I mean, we can also ask the question, what's your favorite JoJo part up till now? And I think for both of us, it would be Stardust Crusaders, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did really enjoy Battle Tendency, but I think Stardust edged it out.
Yeah. And the reason Stardust Crusaders is so fantastic, in my opinion, is first of all, pretty much every episode has a new memorable villain. I mean, the pantheon of bad guys for this show has enough members to fill like 10 other shonen anime, and some of
Yeah.
them could easily be like the final villain in those shows. Some are more on the goofy side, like the Oingo Boingo brothers, for example. But this is also like really entertaining. But you don't always have like this really menacing, uh, like brawny villains or cerebral villains. Sometimes you have like just these goofy villains who try to get the better of Jotaro and the gang and fail miserably, or it leads to really funny episodes and shenanigans with Joseph. So and Polnareff. So, but yeah, the setup for them and their powers are always great and sometimes really menacing. So,
I think one of the best parts about the whole stand thing is that I think we had a discussion about this at one point. Is that every stand is overpowered in its own way. So each
Yeah.
battle comes down to being like a mind game,
Oh, yeah.
which is fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's like usually in a lot of times in shonen anime, you have like, oh yeah, okay, these characters have their special powers and they have to pit their strength against these other. But it's often you know ends up coming down to who overpowers the other character, and it's not about pitting your wits against each other and being smarter than the other guy and figuring something out, but it's just like, okay, now I have to figure out to make my new special attack work to kill that guy. And Stardust Crusaders is not like that at all. Every new villain, like you said, has a new stand and who works in a completely different way. And when our protagonists encounter that stand, they don't know most of the time what the actual power is, or if it even is a stand. Sometimes some shit happens to them and they don't immediately figure out that it's a stand, because it's sometimes such a weird power that you won't immediately think of something supernatural. It's just some shit happens to them, like, what the fuck is going on? And then suddenly this turns into a deadly trap. And so they always have to figure out the opponent's power first and then how to beat it. It's not about how who is the strongest, because frankly that's always Jotaro. uh, but how they can survive long enough for Jotaro to be able to beat the snot out of each new villain. So it's incredibly entertaining. Like that whole thing, that whole mix between mystery, suspense, horror, and action show works really well, in my opinion.
Mm.
So yeah, it's great. And unusual in my opinion. You don't see it that often. Also, at least up till now, Stardust Crusaders had the most epic build up, ending battle, everything. Like the build up in that show is really great. Like where the characters are going, what's gonna happen next. And although it has a huge number of episodes, and you would think, that's kind of, how many are there? 52?
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't get boring. It's just there's some weaker episodes in there, of course. But they always keep it interesting with the new stands, new characters, and new developments, and some surprises here and there. So yeah, I would say it's the most entertaining part. Not by a huge margin compared to Battle Tendency, because that's also really great, like you said. But yeah, definitely like the little parts just work together a bit more. A bit. The villain is a bit, or villains, plural, are a bit better, and the world is more. The settings are more interesting because we get to see a lot more different locations, and the different powers of the stands, like the whole new idea of stands introduced in that one, and yeah, the new characters. So far, everything about Stardust Crusaders is probably the best that JoJo has to offer, and I'm really interested to see if the coming arcs can live are serious contenders to Stardust Crusaders.
I mean, one thing that I like is that each arc kind of also, you mentioned, like location or not, each one has its, pretty much its own unique setting. I guess with the exception of Stardust, just because, the goal is Egypt, yes, but, they also have the journey along the way there, which is more heavily emphasized in the first half of
Mm.
the anime.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the first series, or I guess to say, Phantom Blood takes place in England. Battle Tendency, starts off in New York and makes its way down to Mexico. Stardust, starts in Japan, goes to Egypt. Diamond, I believe takes place. I know it starts in Japan. I don't know if it stays there.
I think it stays just in that one town in Japan, which is also kind of unique.
And
At
then,
least compared to the to the other parts, because they always had some kind of journey there to different
and then
parts.
5 is in Italy, and I think 6 is in Florida. So
Yeah. And then we get in 7 and 8, we get into the alternate universe stuff with Wild West shit, and I don't know exactly where JoJo Land is set. But
yeah, that I don't know much about.
yeah. So really diverse, just from part to part.
I believe on one of the best friends videos, they said that Araki is a geography fanboy.
Oh, he's a fanboy of many things. Let me tell you what he also is. He is a terrifying, crazy person. And
Oh yeah.
you know where I'm going with this. So, one thing about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, if you are a dog person like John and I are, or an animal person in general, but especially dogs, be prepared to be horrified by this show. He, like I said, Hirohiko Araki is a very sick man, and I wouldn't let my dog within 100 miles of that person, because the body count of dogs and animals in general in that show is huge. And not just, oh, well, yeah, I don't know, dog gets run over by a car and dead. No, those poor puppies die in horrifying ways, in the most horrifying ways that you can imagine and can't imagine.
Yeah, it's not good.
I several times was sitting on my couch in shock, almost puking at my screen. This because of the shit that was going on there, and I'm not easily shocked, I gotta say. So
I
wow.
mean, I wonder if that's a product of it starting in the 80s when, I guess back when that sort of crazy violence was much more of a thing in manga, and then it, it didn't really seem to disseminate that heavily into like very many different anime. I mean, sure, there's some super violent ones out there, but not as many as I would think like older manga stories.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass.
No. The hyperviolent stuff sure is a thing, and of course it's shown by what is done to the human characters as well. But it's just standing out to me that every dog, or well, almost no, pretty much every dog, uh, in these shows. I mean, the show starts off with Dio trapping Jonathan's pet dog in a cellar and setting that cellar on fire. And
I forgot he did that.
yeah,
Oh, you're
and they cut out. I think they censored it a bit or toned it down in the TV series. But in the manga, there's a panel where the cellar doors fly open, and the dog is jumping out on fire. Half of his face melted off.
Oh,
So yeah, there's no talking around it. If Araki doesn't hate dogs, I don't know what's up with that. I'm pretty sure he just doesn't like them and gets joy out of like depicting their demise in this series in the most most appalling way.
yeah.
So if you hate dogs, you will get out of that something out of that show too. Just saying.
Jesus.
Just saying. Holy shit. Anyway, but despite that, like I said, I like dogs very much, and I don't want to see any harm done to them. And it was a tough watch in some parts, but I could see past it and enjoy the show for what it is, regardless. So
Yeah.
make of that what if I can do that, most of
I
you
mean,
probably can do that too.
I get a little more cringy at stuff like that, but I was able to get through it
Yeah.
somehow.
And like I said, it's toned down in the anime. It's still gross, incredibly gross, but it's toned down in compared to the manga.
I mean, the anime also has some other weird, I guess, well, I guess there's one moment that's like straight up censored, but so I guess smoking is illegal in Japan if you're under the age of, is it 16? And since, Jotaro during Stardust Crusaders is still, a high school kid, he's clearly smoking a cigarette, but he put a shadow over his face. And
Yeah,
it's
it
like,
was so dumb.
it's like, guys, okay, we get it, but come on.
There were a lot of course, violent censorship, but that was the most prominent weird censorship in the TV version. I think for the Blu-ray they took that all out.
Yeah, I mean, for the actual physical violence, I feel like they made the right choice, the TV version, for some of those scenes. But
Yeah.
for that one in particular, it's like, that doesn't seem necessary.
Yeah. So if you watch the Blu-ray version, I don't know if it's. I think if you watch it via streaming on Crunchyroll, if that's still on there, or anything like that, that censorship is still in there. But if you like get the physical release, that should be taken out. But just as a warning, don't be surprised if there are some weird black shadows in the anime at certain points.
Oh, okay. Smoking is prohibited under the age of 20 in Japan. Ooh.
Oh, well, smart choice actually.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's the reason behind that.
I think it's worth talking about some of the music and the composers they got on the series.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Because the first series had two different composers, one for Phantom Blood and one for Battle Tendency, actually. They just split it right down, well, I guess not the middle, but you get the idea.
Mm.
The first part was scored by a guy, Hayato Matsuo. Looks like his big claim to fame is The World God Only Knows. He did all the music for that. He did some other stuff too, like the Index movie and Kamen Rider 555.
Feis. Yes, Kamen Rider Feis. Oh, that's a great show.
Okay, see, I don't know shit about Kamen Rider.
It's one of the best It's one of the best Kamen Riders in my opinion.
And I mean, the music throughout all the shows is great, but I just want to highlight that the Battle Tendency arc was scored by my boy Taku Iwasaki.
Hey, a familiar name.
Every time his name will come up, I'll call him my boy because he's great. I love his style. He did stuff like Gatchaman Crowds,
Noragami, which we already talked about. Yep.
Which as a sidebar, I have started watching. I'm like 5 episodes in, and it's great.
Neato. Did I promise too much?
No.
Oh, it gets better too, so be prepared.
And he also did the music in Gurren Lagann. That's right, forgot that.
Yep.
And then Stardust and Diamond are both being scored by a guy, Yugo Kano, who, for better or for worse, did the music in Gundam Reconquista and G. We have opinions on that show, but
yeah.
He also did the music for Psycho Pass, which is great.
That's a fantastic soundtrack, right? Well, and so is Stardust Crusaders. I can't speak for Diamonds yet because that episode, by the time this episode is released, probably the first 1 or 2 episodes of Diamond is Unbreakable will be out to watch and stream. You should check that out if you want to jump right into some JoJo stuff after some new JoJo stuff after listening to this episode. You can do that. But yeah, judging from Stardust Crusaders, especially the scenes where tension is built up and some kind of moody atmosphere, the soundtrack really shines, in my opinion. Also during the action scenes, of course, but especially the suspense music for that show is really great. Like when you don't know what's going on, there's a stand at work here, but what is really happening and who is the bad guy and what is his power? The soundtrack really shines, in my opinion, because this feeling of dread combined with the sound effects and everything is really, really brought across well through the music.
There's just so much, I guess, like a synthesis of everything that's going on screen with like the color palettes and the music. JoJo's is obviously since there's still a manga running, it's still getting anime adaptations. It's something that has endured the test of the past 30-ish years very well.
Oh yeah, and it's I would say I can't be sure of that, but its success I would say is responsible for a resurgence of adaptations of old 80s manga stuff like we talked about Ushio and Tora,
Mm.
and before that came Parasite, and I think those shows might be here because JoJo was a big success and still works and did what it did very well, and still has a big fan base. And now we get more of that shit. And JoJo, yeah, keeps there's more JoJo coming. Like if you're like, man, I watched through all of this, but I want more. Yeah, don't worry. At least for now, we definitely gonna get Diamond is Unbreakable. We'll see how that fares, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be successful. Many people looking forward to that already, judging by the responses to the trailers and everything. So I'm pretty sure that is gonna do well. And I really hope we're gonna get all of the other parts of JoJo.
I remember when they were like, "Oh, hey, members of David Production were doing some location scouting," and then they just turned that around. Like, "Oh no, it was totally a group vacation."
Uh-huh.
And then there was this piece of promo art that Diamond just kind of snuck out. And then, they finally let the cat out of the bag a couple months back, and the hype has been building. Like, like, Diamond, where is it? I want to watch it now.
Yeah, you can tell that the creators of the show just have such a huge passion for the original material and want to really, focus on bringing everything that makes it so good into the other medium, like from the still page to the animated frame, and it shows everywhere. And even in the opening animation for each new show, which all of them are so well done. I was like, when I first saw, I was like, oh no, there's weird CG in there, but it's so
It works.
yeah, it works. It merges with the incredible colorful style of the show, and like overshadows the gripes you might have with CG animation or everything. It doesn't matter anymore. It just looks so perfect and so different and so cool. And then you get like these weird little Easter eggs sometimes where they put like the sound effects from the show in the actual opening, which is usually not a thing. And then later there's a neat little Easter egg. If you don't watch your anime openings every episode, definitely watch the opening to the second to last episode of Stardust Crusaders after you've watched the first one for the first time, because that's a bit different than the ones than the normal opening to that show. So yeah.
I'm glad you brought up something about the opening sequences, because I wanted to say something similar. Because I was watching last night one of the videos on, I think the YouTube channel is Mother's Basement.
Mm-hmm.
And which is a stupid name. It sounds stupid, but
not as
it's
stupid
actually
as anime brain freeze though.
But the guy on there does some actually interesting videos where he talks about different anime openers, and he did one, all about JoJo's, and he talked about them top to bottom. And it's interesting because there's so many parallels, like different panels from the manga, like the lyrics in the song are, it's more than just generic J rock or J pop. It's actually singing about the subject matter of the story, which is cool. That's great.
Mm.
It's very well reflective of the subject matter.
Yeah, all of those openings are probably my ranking either first or second place in the corresponding seasons for me. The one for Phantom Blood, the one for Battle Tendency, first arc of Stardust Crusaders, second arc of Stardust Crusaders. I liked all of those. I think they were magnificent. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what we'll get for Diamond is Unbreakable. You mentioned that it might be an instrumental one for a change.
Well, no, I just wasn't sure what it was. I know I saw on Crunchyroll's Twitter earlier. You're like, "Hey, can you try and guess what the ending theme is gonna be?
Oh yeah.
Throw your guesses at us." And I wonder if anyone figured it out.
Oh yeah. Well, Araki apparently always chooses the ending themes himself for the anime. Like he is the one who decides what it is. So yeah, good question. What
I
is
mean,
it?
Roundabout was great, and so was Walk Like an Egyptian.
Yeah, and Last Train to
That one I was kind of cold on at first, but after a while it made sense.
it fits so perfectly with the ending of the show because it's got this bittersweet connotation to it, and it works really well because the ending is kind of bittersweet in more than one way. And yeah, I love that too. But like you said, yeah, in the beginning I was like, yeah, but then I definitely warmed up to it once I saw where they were going with it. And yeah, well, judging from what we have heard, seen so far in regards of endings, I assume we're gonna get a. Diamonds is Unbreakable is set during the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good questions. It's all set all in Japan. It's in the 90s.
Here's the tweet I found. I'll give a year of Crunchyroll Premium to the first person who can guess the correct ending song for JoJo's 4.
Did you send your guess in?
I had no idea what to guess because there's so many we could go with.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Probably if you knew more about the story itself on Diamond is Unbreakable, you could maybe guess it or something relating to diamonds in general. I don't know.
I don't know, maybe it'd probably be a stretch, but watch it be something goofy like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which is not the right time period, but
hey, who knows? We'll see. That would be cool too. But yeah, looking forward to that. And so yeah, I can't wait for when the first episode of Diamond is Unbreakable is airing, is being released. And yeah, I hope we could give you a brief look into the amazing, fantastical, over-the-top mess. Very positive. That I mean that in a very positive way. Mess that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And if you are remotely interested in old school anime, old school 80s manga stuff, designs, and shonen storylines, I urge you to give JoJo's a chance and don't be discouraged by Phantom Blood. It is a good first part, but it's still, for now, comparably the weakest of the three. So everything that comes after that is even better. So if you already like Phantom Blood, you're gonna get the kick out of the coming one. So please give it a try. I'm pretty sure you won't regret it. JoJo is love, JoJo is life, and with that, we are out. Okay, that is a wrap on the 5th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and animebrainfreeze.com. Leave us a comment anywhere you like or send us an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a good time. And please join us again on our next episode. Adios!
Goodbye, JoJo.